Welcome to the page discussing Collingwood. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Let's talk about this issue, Jack Ginnivan. I wanted to make this video long ago, but it's come to a point where I'm sick and tired of trying to discuss this issue with trolls constantly texting in Facebook. So I thought, you know what, let's make a video, let's settle this case. And for those Collingwood supporters, if this topic comes up, just share this video to silence the trolls online regarding Jack Ginnivan. Now you need to remember as a Collingwood supporter that if a player leaves the club unwillingly and he performs well at another club, this is another ammunition to try and attack Collingwood. But if the player went by himself with his own free will or his own intention, his own initiative, and he does well, it's not really an ammunition to hit back at Collingwood, right? So the trolls and the guys and girls who hate Collingwood, they're going to use any opportunity, and that's exactly what they're doing with Jack Ginnivan. Now, there's this misconception that Jack Ginnivan was pushed out of the club, and that now that he's doing well at Hawthorn, they think that this is now a way where they could tease and bully Collingwood. But in this video, we're going to show that this isn't the case and their statements are not factual, and we're going to disprove it. But before we get into that, we can see many inconsistencies in the media. We can see the hatred of Collingwood even through the media. So I'm sure you remember when Jack Ginnivan was celebrating, I think it was in the third game against St Kilda or something, when Collingwood bet St Kilda, I think it was last year. Jack Ginnivan was, taking his phone, taking selfies, doing what he does, what Jack Ginnivan does, basically. And then Kane Corners started attacking Jack Ginnivan, saying, what the hell is he doing? Who does he think he is? He hasn't really proven anything. What's he doing celebrating and carrying on? Blah, blah, blah. And he started attacking him for that, And Jack Ginnivan was only a kid, a young kid, and just came into the game. Kane Corners didn't like this. However, the interesting thing is when you had a look at the context, St Kilda at the time, but in 2002, they were pumped up. I think they won their first two games, or they were unbeaten, right? They were unbeaten. And there was this whole talk about St Kilda being, they're going to play finals. This is a different St Kilda team. They've finally gelled together. There was this whole hooray about, St Kilda. And then when Collingwood came and bet them, that was literally a natural reaction from Jack Ginnivan to say, look, the team that you championed, look, we put them in their place. And Jack Ginnivan rightfully celebrated, but Kane Corners completely ignored that context and started attacking him. How dare he celebrate this way? And then we fast forward to 2023, where Jack Ginnivan leaves Collingwood and so forth. Jack Ginnivan now plays for Hawthorn, and then they beat Collingwood. Sorry, not 2023, 2024. So Jack Ginnivan plays against Collingwood. They beat Collingwood. And then Jack Ginnivan starts carrying on, being Jack Ginnivan, taking photos, selfies, pulling out his tongue, going up to the crowd, giving it to the crowd, blah, blah, blah. And then the same Kane Corners gets around Jack Ginnivan, praising him, right? Praising him. And then everyone started going to Kane Corners like, what are you doing? Like what's... like what? Just because he's changed the colour of his jumper, you're now facilitating and authorising this sort of behaviour. And so Kane Corners got proven to be somewhat hypocritical where, and then Kane Corners try to justify it to say, he's playing good footy. He can go out and say what he wants to say and do what he wants to do, blah, blah, blah. And you see all this support and you think to yourself, what good footy? What has Hawthorn really proven? What, they bet a broken Collingwood team? They bet a Collingwood team that couldn't even make finals this year? So what has Hawthorn really proven? Oh, well, they've made the finals. And? Well, if you want to say, they've made the finals, well, Collingwood won the premiership last year. Collingwood won the premiership last year, so beating Saints in round 3 was justified. The way he carried on was justified. He's a premiership player. But you started attacking him round 3. Right? And when Hawthorn beat Collingwood, they didn't even make the finals at that time. They just, I think after round 23 or something, they found out that Hawthorn made the finals. So there's a double standards, right? And then now recently again, this is just today, right? We see footy, Jack Ginnivan, he was busted at a pub before the final game. So playing for Hawthorn, he was busted at a pub. And then the media comes out and says, "Oh, Jack never changed." You can see, look. You can see, "Oh, Jack never changed," meaning never changed this sort of behaviour of yours. But the same Jack was accused of going to the races before the game, Collingwood grand final. He was accused of going to the races by the media. They started pounding on him. But now the media changed its stance, never change. And of course, a lot of these trolls, they come and say, if you're saying that the media is hypocritical, if you're saying, what about Collingwood fans booing Jack Ginnivan, booing him? And it's an oxymoron, the two don't even compare really. First of all, you can't point a finger at Collingwood and say, well, there's hypocrisy there. First of all, two wrongs don't make it right. So that should be the argument, right? Two wrongs don't make it right, even if Collingwood fans boo Jack Ginnivan, right? Secondly, booing Jack Ginnivan, I can even prove is justified because you want to turn around and say that Jack Ginnivan was pushed out of Collingwood, which is not true. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, Jack Ginnivan made an excuse to leave Collingwood. He wanted to I'm not sure whether he ever used the words, "they pushed me out." And if he did, there's an inconsistency there, and I'll tell you why. Craig McRae said that Jack Ginnivan is a required player at the club. So all you haters and trolls of Collingwood, that right there completely debunks and refutes your claim. So how can he be pushed out if Jack Ginnivan is a required player at the club, just as Craig McRae, our coach, who knows the situation more than anyone else, he said that Jack Ginnivan is a required player. Now, if he didn't make that statement, then yes, you've got every right to bully Collingwood and say he was pushed out. But Craig McRae refuted that and said he is a required player. Secondly, we need to understand the context of playing for Collingwood. When Jack Ginnivan was playing at Collingwood, the media headhunted him, because he kicked something like over 40 goals or something like that. And a lot of those goals came from free kicks. And so the media went on a witch hunt. The trolls went on a witch hunt. All the spectators went on a witch hunt. Oh, this guy's a cheat. He's a ducker. How can he get away with this? And guess what happened? The AFL came and changed the law. They literally changed the law, man. Can you believe this? They changed the law. And they said anyone who's trying to milk a free kick or lifts the arm up, they're going to get penalised. Well, guess what happened? When Jack Ginnivan left and went to go play for Hawthorn, even the commentators said, we've noticed that the umpires have relaxed the law. They're not really pinning those who are milking the free kick anymore. Oh, wonder why. The colour of the jumper makes a difference, doesn't it? When Jack Ginnivan plays for Collingwood, the law is totally enforced to the T, but when he goes and plays for the Hawks, let's now relax the law across the board. Look at the hypocrisy. And I'm telling you, the colour of the jumper matters. And I'm not saying that the colour of the jumper is the only thing. It's about the personality. This makes a difference too. Like if you're a Nick Dacos and you're up for the Brownlow, it's not just the colour of the jumper they're targeting, it's also the personality and how good he is. I actually had this discussion and a debate with another individual who said, it's not really the colour of the jumper because look, we've got mark of the year contenders who are Bobby Elliott and Jamie Elliott. And I'm like, the nominations for the mark of contenders, that's got nothing to do with it, right? Jamie Elliott isn't running for the Brownlow, nor is Bobby Hill. But of course, Nick Dacos is going to get targeted because the colour of the jumper he plays for. The trolls are going to come after him harder. Even when the guy wins his second All-Australian, how dare they select him as a winger? Not knowing that even if you get selected as a winger, it's not like you're going to be playing, right? All-Australian is only something that's on paper. It's not something that, it's going to happen on game day. So regardless whether you play Nick Dacos on the wing, it's not going to really matter. Right? But they're still going after him. How dare he get selected? How dare a person who's almost going to win, who's in the running, it's between him and Patrick Cripps, how dare he get in the All-Australians? See what I mean? So it is about the colour of the jumper. They can't hate it. But again, I don't want to divert this subject to Nick Dacos. That's for another topic of the day. But you get my point. So the umpires come out and make a different law or a law, introduce a law, and then when Jack Ginnivan leaves the club, they relax on the law. So Jack Ginnivan, a young kid growing up in the game, barely played a season of footy and so forth, and so they go after him. They go after him heavily, and so Jack Ginnivan has a mental crisis. He needs to see a therapist, a psychologist, and he actually gets sort of dropped momentarily from the team because his head is not in the right space. So that is the pressure of playing for a big club. That's the pressure of the media, the haters coming after you, right? So that's how uncomfortable Jack was feeling at Collingwood Football Club. So if you want to blame Collingwood for having Jack pushed out, you as a hater, you bear a bunch of the responsibility for Jack leaving Collingwood because you guys were hounding him left, right and centre. So if you want to blame Collingwood, how about blame yourself for Jack Ginnivan leaving Collingwood? But no, you're happy with that because you want the destruction of Collingwood. Let's be honest. Let's stop beating around the bush. Stop hiding behind the bush. Come out and admit it. You hate Collingwood and you don't want to see them achieve. I mean, that's the explanation. And you hounded him. You hounded Jack Ginnivan, put him in a mental crisis for that kid's failure. But of course, when Jack Ginnivan's playing for Collingwood, he's a flog. He's a ducker. He's a cheat. But when he leaves and plays for Hawthorn and scores goals and plays a good football, then he suddenly becomes a champion. Suddenly becomes a champion, right? Notice the hypocrisy. So Jack Ginnivan is under all of this pressure, is getting hounded by the media. So already the guy's feeling uncomfortable playing at Collingwood, right? And then Jack Ginnivan, being young, he likes to sort of go to clubs and parties and all that sort of stuff. Collingwood had to take a stand also. Collingwood had to say, listen, Jack, the media is coming after you. The haters are coming after you. Everything that you do, everything that you touch is starting to become a conversation. We need you to focus on your footy. We need you to stop going to pubs and nightclubs or races before the game, right? We need you to tuck your head in. And Jack Ginnivan didn't like that. Jack Ginnivan wanted the freedom. He didn't want the media to come after him. He didn't want all of this negative energy that's starting to affect his game. So Jack Ginnivan probably thought to himself, you know what? I grew up as a Hawthorn supporter as a child. How about I start looking at Hawthorn, right? So my opinion is that Jack Ginnivan didn't get pushed out. He didn't want to fulfill the rules and regulations of Collingwood because Collingwood had certain issues and dramas even in the past with other certain players. For instance, Stephenson. Jaden Stephenson was caught playing up outside footy. He started, betting, I think, on the races and the horses, and so there was a scandal done. And so he was given a lengthy suspension, something like 12 weeks or something like that. And then you had the issues of Jordan De Goey playing up in America, and then in Las Vegas, I think it was, and then his recent activity in Bali. So he had off-field issues there, and so Collingwood, because of these off-field issues and how it's affecting players and Collingwood in general, Collingwood took a strong stance. And then we know the case of what happened with Heretia Lubumba, the Do Better project, the racism saga, and so forth. So Collingwood said, enough is enough. We are going to have a strict protocol at our club where we're not going to tolerate any of this behaviour. And so all of these pressures have impacted Jack Ginnivan because there was zero tolerance at the club. Because of this history at the club and where there is we had a complete administration change at Collingwood Football Club. Nathan Buckley had to go. Eddie Maguire had to go. So it was this whole revolution at the club, a complete cultural shift, a complete cultural change at the club. And because of this, Jack Ginnivan comes into the system while this change is happening. So obviously, Jack Ginnivan is not going to be relaxed. He's not going to live his young life, where he wants to be a little bit rebellious. He wants to go out and drink or have fun and do all that sort of stuff. And this was no longer tolerated at the club. And what really, really pushed this drive of change, even our veteran during the season, I think it was round 3 or maybe around 4 or 5, Steele Sidebottom, he was found during the game drunk. This was, I think, in 2021. This is when Collingwood was finishing something like 17th, 18th on the ladder. He was found drunk, half naked. They found him in a gutter. This is our veteran, man, our veteran. Like, after Steele Sidebottom, after Scott Pendlebury, this is Sidebottom, our second highest veteran at the club. Well, I could probably say he's equal veteran with Pendlebury. He was found at a gutter So something really was going wrong. So they needed a cultural shift. And thank goodness there was a cultural shift. We replaced Eddie and Buckley. We had a new fresh start at the club. Again, I'm not blaming Buckley and so forth. Eddie had his issues. But we had a cultural change and we won a premiership. Right? We fixed our salary cap. We got rid of players who were getting paid too much, and we refreshed the list, and we won a premiership. So it was a big success. We brought in Craig McRae. We had a big successful year. Now, despite having a successful year, Ginnivan did not wish to play according to these laws. And so the kid was pressured. Even Jack Ginnivan himself said that he didn't have that freedom of wanting to play the way he wanted to play. It was more system-based. Collingwood wanted to have a certain system. Even Taylor Adams left the club for a very similar reason. Collingwood wanted Taylor Adams to play the high half mid role, but Taylor Adams wanted to play in the middle. He just wanted to play that on-ball role. So after the grand final and so forth, when obviously he got injured, he got moved on. Because he himself moved himself on because he didn't want to play that system game with Collingwood. So he went to Sydney. So Jack Ginnivan, again, he didn't want to play that system game. He wanted to play the way he wanted to play, the freedom and so forth. And so he kind of made an excuse to leave Collingwood. So if you want to say he got pushed out by Collingwood, there could be some truth to it. Well, the push out was you need to behave yourself. You need to listen to the laws that we have in the club, the culture we have in the club, and you need to play according to how Craig McRae wants you to play in our game plan. Now, Jack Ginnivan didn't want that. He didn't want that sort of clause, right? And this clause isn't something new. Jordan De Goey had a clause put on him too. So when Jordan De Goey was playing up, there was a clause put on him too to say, we want you to re-sign with Collingwood, but there's going to be a behavioural clause. And at the start, Jordan De Goey was reluctant. He didn't want that. He kind of complained and he was starting to look at other clubs. But eventually he signed the deal, and he signed the deal that had a behavioural clause in it. Because again, Collingwood has a strong stance on a cultural change with this. So again, they made the same condition with Ginnivan, that there's going to be some sort of a clause, not in a contract, but you need to behave yourself and so forth. Now, you may turn around and say, going back to the boos, why was Collingwood booing? Well, he was booed because he was given these opportunities and Jack Ginnivan refused, right? And when he refused, it was like a slap in the face, because when it came to grand final day, Collingwood selected Jack Ginnivan over Noble. No, if anyone should have played that grand final, everyone knows it was Noble who deserved to play that grand final. And that poor kid was dropped. And so it was a slap in the face that this guy got an opportunity to play for the black and white on the biggest stage. And yet this guy, literally after winning the flag, started ditching Collingwood, right? So yes, the boos were actually justified against Jack Ginnivan. They were justified because when the media was hunting this guy, taking his head off, when opposition players were taking his head off, and the whole community were laughing at Jack Ginnivan, they were putting him in hospital, right? It was the Collingwood fans who were chanting and defending Jack Ginnivan and his honour. How many times? And then Jack Ginnivan turns around and starts, playing for Hawthorn, and starts, putting the finger up and acting like a friggin', acting unthankful. That actually deserves the boos. So the Collingwood fans are like, why did we waste our time with this bloke who literally ditched us, who literally does that to us? So, you know what? He actually deserved it. So the honest truth is, this guy didn't have the backbone to stay with Collingwood because of, he was getting attacked by opposition spectators. He was getting attacked by the media. He didn't want to play that system-based game with Collingwood. And, people make the excuse, but Collingwood was trying to push him out to get Schultz in and so forth. No, Collingwood understood that Jack Ginnivan didn't want to be at the team, and that's why they started looking elsewhere for Schultz. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. They probably would have looked for more of a defender to replace Murphy, or probably another mid to replace Taylor Adams, or probably a key forward, because we kept getting ones injured. So that would have been a better prospect. But obviously we had to get Schultz in because Jack Ginnivan's heart wasn't at Collingwood. And Jack Ginnivan clearly himself said that he grew up as a kid following the Hawks. It was his dream to play for the Hawks. So of course, Jack Ginnivan needs to make an excuse to say he was pushed out of the club in order to justify his move. Otherwise, people are going to continue to call him a flog and an ungrateful idiot for having a position to play on the biggest stage when it could have been John Noble. So it makes Ginnivan look more innocent than he is and more of a victim than he is. And of course, the trolls are going to use this, ignoring all the context, in order to tease and bully Collingwood more. Because at the end of the day, Collingwood for them is the arch number one enemy, and they'll use any sort of ammunition to try and bully and tease Collingwood. Let's face it, come out of the bush, that is the real motive behind it. And we know it's a constant thing that they always do. When Grundy left and played for Melbourne and he was becoming a bit successful, they started bullying Collingwood. Oh, look, you friggin' delisted him. They're doing the same with Treloar. Oh, look at Treloar. They made finals this year. Oh, he became an All-Australian. Oh, look at Collingwood. What a laughing stock. So it's that same mentality, right? If a player leaves Collingwood, becomes successful, it's another ammunition to try and tease and bully Collingwood. That's all it is. But we don't see the same for Collingwood when Lipinski couldn't get a game at the Bulldogs. When he couldn't get a game, he couldn't get named on their team selection. He came and won a flag for Collingwood. We don't see the trolls bullying and teasing the Bulldogs. When Mason Cox couldn't get a name listed, he couldn't even make the side. Sorry, not Mason Cox. Darcy Cameron. When Darcy Cameron couldn't get named on the Sydney team, he was in their VFL. We took him, and he almost got All-Australian this year. Almost got All-Australian. He got listed in the All-Australian squad, right? And now a premiership player. We don't see the trolls going and bullying and teasing Sydney. Ha ha ha! You let an All-Australian squad player go. Ha! Look how he became successful at Collingwood. I don't see you guys bullying and teasing Sydney. And guys, to be fair, I'm not saying that opposition fans only do this as well. Of course, you're going to have Collingwood fans like Taylor Adams got dropped from Sydney's first final game in 2024. And you've got posts from Collingwood supporters going, ha ha ha, look what happened to Taylor Adams. Of course, you see this culture, not just in Collingwood, but it happens with all the fans. Hopefully, I have clarified the Jack Ginnivan Collingwood drama saga, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, please subscribe. I know it was a long video, but it had to be done because we had to cover as many topics and discussions. yes, the media is hypocritical. The colour of the jumper does matter. And Jack Ginnivan was pushed out in the sense that he needed to play according to the game plan, but he was still a required player. It was Jack Ginnivan who really pushed himself out. It was the spectators who fueled and ignited that pushing of Jack Ginnivan out of Collingwood. So there's fingers pointing all over the place. It's not just an issue with Collingwood. There were requirements at Collingwood which Jack Ginnivan did not wish to fulfill. It was Jack Ginnivan who ultimately pushed himself out of the club. Yes, there were encouragements from spectators who wanted him out, who forced him out, who ignited this, who were complicit in him coming out of Collingwood. And of course, we know why that was the case. So that said, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share this video with those who constantly bring this and use this and weaponize this against Collingwood. Thank you.